Good evening, members and uh, ladies and gentlemen. We today have a talk called Burmese Teak Farmhouses Documentation Project, presented here by Jeff Allen and Khin Brani. Kun Jeff he started in the Middle East, but then they're both from World Monument Fund. Jeff started in the Middle East and came to Southeast Asia. I met him when he was restoring the Wat Chai Wattanaram Merus. And so I've known him for some time now. And Khin Brani started with World Monument Fund in the restoration of Chue Jiao. And they're here doing this documentation project, and I'll let Jeff and Khin Brani present.
You can all hear me, I hope. Minglaba, Nicola. Yeah, Bade. So we're going to have a little brief talk and some questions and answers. And I see some familiar faces and some people we haven't met before. So we're going to kind of do this where maybe it's a little bit of a comedy act, whatever. She's going to be by the mic and I'm going to be moving around. And then afterwards, we'd love to have questions and answers from you. I have a few notes just so I don't forget things. The first thing I have to do is to thank the Siam Society staff and all of you for coming today. We appreciate this. This is a kind of kickoff moment for us for an exhibition we're doing. So if you saw the invitations, you'll see that starting on the 8th to the 26th, there will be a Burmese Teak Farmhouse exhibition, free entry for all of you. And it's going to be at Silvercorn University from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day, except Sundays and holidays. So Saturdays are available for those of you who are working hard during the week, and you may come and join us. The 8th is going to be a kind of moment where we're all there. So if you want to talk about Burmese farmhouses further, we'll be there. I want to make a brief mention to introduce you to someone, Pashrat Banak, who is now involved with World Monuments Fund as a co-chair of our exploratory committee. World Monuments Fund has been working in Southeast Asia primarily at Cambodia and Angkor for the last several decades, but we are expanding our footprint and doing projects more often in this region, partly why I ended up working in Southeast Asia since 2012. And Pashara has an exploratory committee that are looking at the options and abilities for us to implement more projects here in Thailand beyond what we're doing now. And we'll mention briefly some of that at the end of this presentation. I think right now we'll start to flip some slides. And I'm just going to kind of ad-lib some of this, and hopefully it doesn't bore you. Hopefully it's entertaining. And I hope you've got a chance to see some of this and why we think this is an interesting subject, which hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll know. So somebody's got keeping an idea on the time and cut me off. And somebody in the back, you just go like that, yeah? Tell me, stop it, stop, because I will go on for hours otherwise, okay? So next slide, please. So we're going to talk about teak farmhouses according to the exhibition layout. So the exhibition is organized in 6 sections. So we're going to follow that. So maybe if you can't make the exhibition, you can at least understand the exhibition by this presentation a bit, okay? So one of the things that we're very interested is the idea of what architecture means and how is cultural diversity seen in architecture. We're at a stage of working in a very difficult, challenging environment in Myanmar to do these kind of things. Just say, you know, ahead of time, we don't work with any government partner. We work with local communities only. And we're trying to record and collect data. We'd like to long-term move to another phase where we start to do more scholarly work and bring in academics, anthropologists, those kind of people to understand better what we're recording. But right now our main focus is to collect data. And you'll understand in a few minutes a bit more about that. Next slide, please. So text, legacy in timber and tradition. Farmhouses are disappearing. You may know that because you live in Thailand. There's not many of them left here, right? Thailand is much more ahead on the curve of modernity and development. And Myanmar, for some benefits, was closed for so long that a lot of its teak architecture survived. And when I'm saying teak, I'm using that as a general selling term for wooden architecture. Teak is how we pull money. Say donors like to hear the word teak. Not all these houses, such as this house here, are 100% teak. They may have percentages of teak, but maybe not completely of teak. Just so you understand that, okay? And we're looking at trying to record an architectural form of vernacular architecture that hasn't received a lot of attention, and try to do it before it disappears. And we'll talk in a few minutes a bit more about how fast that's disappearing and how it's disappearing. And we think that teak architecture or wooden architecture has a role in today's society, but also in the future when we talk about green, friendly, and environmental. And if I should just jump ahead here, there was an earthquake recently in Myanmar. And it's not surprising that the architecture that fares best is wooden architecture. It's flexible, it moves. The brick stuff fell down. So there are some values here we think to learn from the past. Next slide, please. So I will make the propaganda quick, but I have to say who World Monuments Fund is. Next slide. By the way, I'm showing you just the 3 photos. You saw the previous photo is Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island. That's where we have a project. We have a project at Chinlong Gardens in Forbidden City, and a project, our oldest, in Lalibela in Ethiopia. We work around the world in many different places, many different contexts with different kinds of money. We are a New York-based organization. Next slide, please. That works around the world. We have a central office. We have affiliate offices. We have regional or country offices. And we implement projects with other people's money. We're a 503c nonprofit organization that started in the 1960s at Ethiopia and in Venice, Italy, with our first projects. We are currently developing a new regional office in China. We had a country office. A regional office or an affiliate office is a kind of bump up in structure with an office and a registration. Currently, we've had a project office in Cambodia and Siem Reap for over 30 years. We have projects here in Thailand, which we'll mention at the very end of the presentation. Next slide, please. So we focus on different thematic issues. Conflict, that's an easy one. That's Aleppo, Syria. Very easy to see conflict there. Disasters, flooding. This is in somewhere in the United States with flooding, coastal flooding, and you also have an overlap with climate change. This is in the UK. We deal with the disappearance of skills, so we do a lot of projects that we parallel with training and capacity building for local people. Sometimes we bring in experts for something, sometimes we build our skills locally. Projects are implemented in different ways. Some projects we have our own staff, so at Wat Chai we have our own staff. Other projects we work with local partners. It depends on the circumstances, the legality of the area where you're working at. In the case of working at Wat Chai, we work with the Fine Arts Department of Thailand. Oh, don't jump the gun. So, passage of time, that's just a reference to things fall apart. Monuments fall apart. That's a natural trajectory of historic monuments, and we try to slow that down, repair them, fix them. Quite often on projects, the main culprit are previous conservation effort. So to reference Shui and Daozhong in Mandalay, 85% of what we did there was undo the bad work that was done before. Okay, that's very common. Tourism, the impact of tourism on sites, and large crowds are becoming more and more problematic. To again make a side story, we work at Wat Chai Watanaran, which started the project in 2012 after the catastrophic floods. When we started, the typical number of visitors to Wat Chai in a day could be 800 people. Most of those school children. If those of you are Thai, you know all about that because you usually make the ritual trip to Wat Chai when you're a kid with a bus of a load of your cohorts. Today, at Wat Chai in a weekend, you can get 10,000 people. The site is being overrun. The grass is being trampled. And why did that happen? And anyone here know about a TV series called Love Destiny? The moment Love Destiny came out, Wat Chai changed dramatically. Those crowds come for those moments where they dress up in an outfit and do a selfie in front of Wat Chai. That's great in some ways, but also very challenging because the crowds do cause more damage, more wear and tear. Now we can do that. So this section is about living traditions. Now, one of the great things about architecture, it involves people. Now, Tim Webster is sitting there. Raise your hand, Tim. You will see several photos from Tim in this presentation. And if you come to the exhibition, we have a Tim Webster rotating imagery. Tim did several photos you're about to see in this section. As part of our very first moment when we tried to start the Burmese Teak Farmhouse project, 2017, right? So Tim did the initial photography when we were conceptualizing this project. My colleague Uong So Mint and I put the idea together back then, and Tim went and did some photography in some places. Yeah, that's right, that's right. And you were also photographing Sweden Deutsch. Next photo, please. So, this is the kind of cool stuff that I like. Everyone heard that kind of terminology. It came out like the 18th century, but eventually Louis Sullivan, American architect, really bonded to the idea that form follows function. All right, so if that's the case, what we end up seeing in vernacular housing are people designing buildings to follow the function. Again, what I was saying before, we're collecting data, but long term we'd like to get more of an anthropological study out of this to understand how people use houses. And I'll make a few comments while you glance through that, because I'm not going to read all that for you because you're adults and you know how to read. But I'll give you a couple examples. During our surveys, especially in the Chai Tung region, our survey team kept seeing chickens free roaming underneath houses. And in fact, often those chickens are fenced in an area underneath where the columns are for the wood. So what do the chickens do? They eat termites. They peck termites. So people free roam quite often chickens underneath their houses to take care of the termite problem. They will peck open their tubes. They'll go at them. Another thing we found in some of the houses, people keep a kind of wasp nest on their balconies. And it's a cylinder-shaped container with a specific wasp. And what does it do? It goes after termites. So there's a lot of great things to learn, and we're just barely tapping some of these in this project. So I want you to understand that there's so much of what we can learn today from the past. And we think farmhouses in Myanmar is a great story to learn from for the future. Now, one of the interesting aspects is this. During the British colonial rule, and especially after the end of the teak monopoly, formerly controlled by the Myanmar Royal Court, high-quality wood became a commodity traded by private merchants. Do you know anything about the sumptuary laws that ran the Konbong dynasty? During the Konbong dynasty period, you couldn't wear what you wanted. You had to wear what fit the code. Your burials and your funerals had to fit the code. And the code was based on a social hierarchy system. And that translated to houses. So if you wanted to build a house out of teak, you couldn't, unless you were of royalty or you were of elite part of society. The average person could only build out of wood framing and bamboo. So the sumptuary laws were to enforce a social hierarchy on people. Now, we're very interested in is in Shan state, you had principalities that had some more kind of semi-autonomous abilities to run things. And we're finding so far in Shan state, we're finding a much more complex concept of farmhouses than in other parts of the country. And we want to get into the understanding why. Maybe that's because the sumptuary laws were not so enforced. That's something I don't know yet, but it's something that's very interesting and puzzling. So one of the aspects of architecture, as I mentioned earlier, is also, besides form follows function, is that if you are in a situation where you have the sumptuary laws controlling how you do buildings and it disappears, people in different parts of Myanmar will interpret that once they're freely able to express themselves in their architecture. So they'll start to decorate their houses. They want to keep up with the Joneses in the neighborhood. They want to make statements about how they want to be perceived by their societies. And often that will be influenced by ethnic diversity. How does someone want to make their house look if you're a Pa'o person? How does someone want to make your house look if you're a Tai Lu person? This is something we really want to understand because it seems that those aspects of cultural diversity play a role in how people, after the sumptuary laws, decided to decorate their buildings. Hope that all makes sense. Is it clear? All right, next slide, please. All right, a little bit of Tim Webster show time. So these are a few of the photos. When we did this assignment, Tim, I think the only thing I said to you is talk to Wong So Min, talk to a few people about where to go, and make sure you got people in almost every photo. All right, so he did a great series of portraits. Another photo, please, of people with the farmhouses. Now, a lot of these farmhouses take on, let's say, Europeanized concepts and features into the buildings in different ways. They're influenced by their environment and their ethnic background, Buddhism, a lot of different things. Next photo, please. And of course, there's lots of livestock under. Burmese farmhouses are quintessentially stilted structures up on beams, okay? This existed in Thailand as well. In Myanmar, we're fortunate that so much of it still survives so far. Next photo. Now, why it matters. The reason we started this project initially came out of some things we noticed. ASEAN opened borders within Southeast Asia. And one of the things you immediately saw was Home Pro. Pro what? What's it called? Pro One. Big box retailers selling building materials. That couldn't exist without ASEAN. And what you end up getting, not just from mainland China, but also from Southeast Asia, large amounts of building materials coming into Myanmar that made it cheaper. And that coincides with the shortage of teak wood. So wood is not available like it was. The price of teak was fixed for a long time. Under the NLD, they were trying to control that. A black market pops up where people are selling teak and other woods. At the same time, people are salvaging houses. You can sell your teak house and sell the wood off to somebody else. And it might end up in some furniture in Singapore. There are various reasons why farmhouses start to disappear. But another important piece of information is that we all like AC. We're running an AC here. Try to run an AC in a teakwood farmhouse. It's much easier if you build a brick or a concrete building. And then thereby you have that kind of accommodations. And if you're a affluent person, you want that kind of business. Now, one other aspect that came at us when we first conceived the project was prior to COVID. We actually practiced a bit during COVID, and then we were actively started working just after the regime fell, and you had a change of government in Myanmar. And next photo, please. So what has happened since the conflict in Myanmar? Over 100,000 houses, maybe 150,000 farmhouses have been burned in Myanmar. So the politics and conflicts are now also making the urgency of recording building forms important. Okay, you burn a lot of houses here. You might take down a couple of them that are 100 years old. And you've lost that chance to understand this part of the culture. Please. And other things, earthquakes. So Khin Brani lives in a wooden building, right? And she said her building shaked, rattled about, but it didn't fall down. Okay, in other cases, buildings completely collapsed and killed many, many people. Wood architecture has an inherent ability of being flexible in this kind of circumstance. But you still had hurricane damage, right? So it's another problem. And this is my favorite. This is in Shan Kalejun, outside Mandalay near Marapura. That's a beautiful little purple and pink house. Now, back to that issue of expressing yourself, and sometimes concrete is a great way of allowing you to express yourselves, and not my taste, but pink, purple, light blue houses, lots of metal work, stainless steel up there, tiled houses, because we know here bio growth goes on to buildings, but if you tile your house, it doesn't. So all of these things are coming together to put pressure on what's left. If you look around Southeast Asia, one of the few places where you still have a large amount of wooden architecture is Myanmar, but that's dramatically changing. So I think we're working in a situation of urgency to record these buildings for many reasons which you've already heard me say. Please. So this is a little graphic. Our friend, don't ask me to say that, okay? That's Kun Pat. So Kun Pat does a lot of our illustrations. You'll see a couple of his works here. This is a graphic I asked him to put together to simplify the pressures on farmhouses. And this is a classic replacement kind of structure that happens. We saw one of the houses at Chai Tung where the house that was there, a teak wood building, has this concrete structure jammed right against it with a catwalk going across to where the bathroom was. It's a little bit jarring in some of it. But I hope that all makes sense to you about the kind of issues we deal with. Next. Now, how we document. My friend Khin Brani is going to help me a bit more now, because she said by the way, she's a famous singer in Myanmar. Yeah, that's how I first met her. She was singing at the Hilton Hotel in Mandalay. Actually, she was a student with us from Technological University of Mandalay, and we were doing the Shuizhong project, and we created an internship program with one of their professors. And we had a group of about 5 or 6 students from TUM who started in their last year of school working with us, and we hired 4 of them. And Khin Brani was mainly doing a lot of AutoCAD documentation stuff in the office with me, but she did a little bit of work on site as well. And that team now is being trained up to go out and do a bit more work. Khin Brani, let's go for another photo, and then you're going to talk a bit. You all right with that? Yeah. Okay. So this is our colleagues Wong So Mint from Yangon and Tete Pyo from Mandalay. And the next picture, there is Waterporn and Ping. Ping's back there. So it's a mixed team. We've got about half Thai, half Burmese, and me in the middle. You ready to talk a bit?
Yes.
Go for it.
Hello, everyone. I would like to share about how we document farmhouses around Mandalay. We initially prioritized the area around Sagaing, Magui, and Naypyidaw regions, but these places are not accessible due to ongoing situations. So we decided to go to Phien Uyluin. Phien Uyluin, also known as Mae Myo, is a hill town and a good place to experience Myanmar's cultural heritage and natural beauty. So you can see many colonial buildings in the city and also interesting farmhouses in rural areas. Our team visits to these villages to conduct a study of farmhouses. Additionally, Jeff, Ellen, and Warapon from WMF provide us a training on how to start the documentation process. Due to the current political situation, the uses of high-tech equipments like laser scanners and drones are restricted. So we rely on traditional methods, taking measurements using less technical tools such as measuring tapes, drawn sketches, hand-drawn sketches, and distometers. Our team is composed of 5 women, myself, and other 3 architects and 1 archaeologist. This has created an unexpected but significant social advantage. Since the men from the houses are typically away at work during the daytime, we interact primarily with the woman who remains at home. These Sorry.
So just to add to that, we realized in not working with government, because we're kind of a little bit CDM here on this. We don't want to work with government agencies if possible in Myanmar for various reasons. And we decided to go this low tech and in a way that would not attract attention. Right?
Yes.
So working with younger women in households where there's only women during the day is more acceptable. We've never had a problem with anybody, correct?
Yes.
And been
Everyone is welcome us warmly and cooperate fully with our survey efforts.
You know, when we first started this, I was worried that we'd have people say, don't come to my village. You know, I don't want to get involved in things. No, it's not been that way at all. It's like, do you want lunch? Do you want us to set up lunch? Do you want tea? It's immediate. It's automatic. It's rare that you get this much hospitality out of people without hesitation and without worry. And I mean, we were in that one village outside of Pinoluen with Nai Salai, and that they were sitting in this village and they said, well, if you stick around long enough, the jet fighters come down the valley. It's out 2 or 3 times a day. It's really loud. And they're just waiting. So I'm surprised they're not coming. Maybe they know you're here. And nobody came that time, but they were saying that it's almost a daily event. You ready? I'm going to pop the button there. There. Now, we're just going to show you what we do. So we do a series of different kinds of drawings, 2D drawings, AutoCAD. These are measured. This, by the way, is a bamboo house. This is a section of a house in Chai Tong area. Next, please. Floor plans. Wood joinery and carpentry. Roof framing. And starting to explore how people devise the uses of their properties. Again, it's data collection at this point, and we try to collect data in 4 different categories of investigation. Simple stuff like taking photos, another one with tape measures, another one with a bit more distometer and iPads, and then getting into more social conversation. So although we haven't got into cultural mapping as a kind of organized exercise, we are talking to people by virtue of being in their houses with them 1, 2, or 3 days. They start to talk about the kids, what they do, where they work, how they work, what they do. You'd be amazed at how many people in Chai Tong area have all the male adults in Thailand working. So, and Ping, didn't you have people, a lot of people speak Thai in Eastern Shan, right? So there's a way to communicate as well. We did the studies in Chai Tong coming across from Taishilik, and we did somebody coming from Mandalay. When Mandalay, the road between Mandalay and Eastern Shan State became inaccessible because of security, we were doing the project from the Thai side. Next. So this kind of leads to trying to make that data a bit more accessible. So Kun Pat put this drawing together of a longhouse. There are less and less longhouses around. This one has 6 families living in it. They're associated to each other through their hereditary and family, expanded family. But it's important to catch these houses before they disappear. I wish I could have seen this. Ping was there. It took you 3 trips to get permission to go through. The police would stop you at blockades. It took you 3 hours to go about 50 kilometers to get to this house, to record it, to draw it, to photograph it. And there's a full set of drawings that are typically floor plans, roof plans, elevation, sections. And then Khun Pat comes in and does some of this stuff. So we're trying to make this information accessible to the average person by showing things in these ways. There's only one rule I always give Khun Pat. There must be a cat in every image, and if possible, a pair of flip-flops. I don't know where the flip-flops went in here, but there should be a pair of flip-flops as well in every building. Now, Khin Brani, the big moment. Introduce what you're going to show now. We're going to have one more section, section 6, but we're going to show you a brief video. Right? Go. There we go.
မြန်မာနိုင်ငံဟာဆိုရင်အရှေ့တောင်အာရှနိုင်ငံတွေထဲမှာဒီကျေးလက်ရွာတတိုင်းလေးတွေကြန့်ရှိနေမှုအများဆုံးနိုင်ငံတစ်နိုင်ငံဖြစ်ပါတယ်ရှင်။ဒီကျေးလက်ရွာတတိုင်းလေးတွေမပြောက်ကွယ်ခင်မှာဒီစနစ်တကျတိုင်းတာခြင်းမှတ်တမ်းတင်ခြင်းတွေကိုပြုလုပ်ဖို့ကအရေးကြီးပါတယ်။ဒါကြောင့်မို့ဒီမြန်မာပြည်သူ့ကပညာရှင်တွေနဲ့ War Monument Fund တို့ပူးပေါင်းပြီးတော့ Burmese Teak Farmhouse Project အနေနဲ့စနစ်တကျတိုင်းတာခြင်းတွေမှတ်တမ်းတင်ခြင်းတွေကိုဆောင်ရွက်လျက်ရှိပါတယ်ရှင်။
အခုကျွန်တော်တို့အဖွဲ့က War Monument Fund ကပြုလုပ်တဲ့ Burmese Teak Farmhouse Project အတွက်ပြည်ဦးလွင်မှာရှိတဲ့မြမကျေးလက်ရိုးရာတစ်သားအိမ်တွေကိုတိကျတဲ့တိုင်းတာမှုတွေနဲ့စနစ်တကျမှတ်တမ်းတင်မှုအတွက်လေ့ကျင့်အနေနဲ့ရောက်ရှိနေရပဲဖြစ်ပါတယ်။အခုဒီပြည်ဦးလွင်မှာရှိတဲ့ရိုးရှင်းတဲ့ကျေးလက်ရိုးရာတစ်သားအိမ်တွေကနေစပြီးတော့မြန်မာနိုင်ငံအနှံ့မှာရှိတဲ့မတူညီတဲ့ဘီတုကာလက်ရာတွေကိုလည်းဆက်လက်လေ့လာပြီးမှတ်တမ်းတင်သွားဖို့ရှိပါတယ်။
ကျွန်မမနစ်ကတော့ဆိုရင်ရှမ်းပြည်နယ်ဟိုပုံးမြို့မှာရှိတဲ့ကြောက်ကချားရွာကရှမ်းရွာအိမ်တွေအကြောင်းကို documentation လုပ်ခဲ့ပူပါတယ်ရှမ်းလူမျိုးတွေရဲ့လူနေမှုပုံစံတွေပြီးတော့သူတို့ရဲ့တိဆောက်ပုံတွေကိုကြောက်ကချားရွာမှာရွာကအိမ်တွေကိုတိုင်းတာရင်းနဲ့တွေ့ရှိခဲ့ရတယ်လူမျိုးမတူညီတဲ့ပုံစံတွေကိုတွေ့ရတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်ညီမအရန်ကိုစိတ်ဝင်စားခဲ့ပြီးတော့ပြည်ဦးလွင် data မှာရှိနေတဲ့ vernacular အိမ်တွေအကြောင်းဆက်လက်တိုင်းတာမယ်ဆိုတော့ပေါင်းဝင်ဖြစ်ခဲ့တာဖြစ်ပါတယ်
ကျမကတော့ Master Thesis တုန်းကတော့ Eastern Shan Vernacular House တွေကိုthesis လုပ်ဖူးခဲ့ပါတယ်ရှင်။အခုကတော့ကျမကတော့ပြည်ဦးလွင်မှာရှိတဲ့ Vernacular House တွေကိုလေ့လာဖို့ရောက်ရှိနေတာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ရှင်။ Vernacular House တွေရဲ့သဘောတဘာဝအရနေရာဒေသတွေကွဲပြားသွားတာနဲ့အမျှကွဲပြားခြားနားမှုများကိုလည်းတွေ့ရှိရပါတယ်ရှင်။ Eastern Shan Vernacular House တွေက magnificent ပုံစံမျိုးသွားတာတွေ့ရှိရပြီးတော့ပြည်ဦးလွင်မှာရှိတဲ့ Vernacular House တွေကတော့ humble ဖြစ်တဲ့ပုံစံမျိုးသွားတာမျိုးတွေ့ရှိရပါတယ်။
ယနေ့ခေတ်မြန်မာနိုင်ငံမှာပြောင်းလဲလာတဲ့လူနေမှုစနစ်ကြောင့်မလို့ပေါ့နော်လူတွေကအိမ်ဆောက်တဲ့အခါမှာရွေးချယ်ရလွယ်ကူတဲ့ material တွေကိုအသုံးပြုလာကြတာရယ် modernize ဖြစ်တဲ့ building တွေကိုရွေးချယ်ဆောက်လုပ်လာကြတာရယ်ကြောင့်မလို့မြမရိုးရာတသားအိမ်တွေကဘီသူကာတွေကပျောက်ကွယ်လူနေပါဖြစ်လာကြပြီပေါ့ဆိုတော့ကျမဒီ project မှာပါဝင်ရတဲ့အဓိကရည်ရွယ်ချက်ကတော့ဒီပျောက်ကွယ်လူနေပါဖြစ်နေတဲ့မြမရိုးရာတသားအိမ်တွေကိုနီးစနစ်မှန်ကန်စွာနဲ့တိုင်းတာခြင်းမှတ်တမ်းတင်ခြင်းတွေကိုပြုလုပ်ခြင်းတဲ့အတွက်ထိမ့်သိမ်းခြင်းတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်မလို့ပါဝင်ရခြင်းဖြစ်ပါတယ်
Okay, so this was our recent training. We started the project because of COVID and the coup with mainly working remotely with a couple people in Yangon and our team here who were involved in the Wat Chai team project as well. So Ping back there was one of the members of that. And our long-term goal was to build the skills of a team inside Myanmar who could go into the field. So the Pinot training in February was to bring back the people who we had worked with at Shuizhong and to start this process. So right now, one of the things Khin Brani is doing here is she's finishing up a set of drawings of 4 farmhouses in Pinot. Again, we did Pinot because it's easy and accessible. Jeff could go. And so I went right past the police, which of course said, "Why are you here?" And the driver said, "Well, because it's Pinot." Because there's not many, I don't think, there's only one foreigner that lives in Pinot to this day, a German teacher. But nobody else goes up to Pinot. Great place if you ever get a chance. Good food, good, beautiful parks, yeah, and weather. And the farmhouses, again, as Puputa said, are very simplistic compared to some other parts of the country. Why? I'm not sure why yet, but I need to find out. Okay, there's some things we need to do and need to learn, but there seems to be reasons why economically, why some areas have much more sophisticated architecture than other areas with vernacular housing. Next slide, please. So the last chapter is called Safeguarding Southeast Asia Heritage. Kun Pasharat, who you met earlier, is involved in helping us try to define that. My personal, hopefully I don't upset anyone else, but my personal connection with Southeast Asia is really heavily about Myanmar and Thailand. I think we have the ability here in this area to develop a much more stronger regional presence. And in engaging with the Siam Society, they've been advisors to us to talk to us about how we can complement what Siam Society does with our work, and also give us some help about how we should go about doing this. So we're concentrating on our projects in peninsular Southeast Asia first. We have a small project in Indonesia. It became very difficult to do because of the distances and remote nature of that project on Sumba Island. But our projects in Myanmar and in Thailand and Cambodia exchange staff. So you see Khin Brani here. I've had several people that work with me here who have gone to work in the Middle East with us on projects in Iraq and Egypt. And we've had our structural engineer in Cambodia, in Myanmar and in Thailand. People go back and forth doing trainings for local staff. So Southeast Asia is very unique, but particularly I think Myanmar and Thailand, there's a lot of opportunities for us. So if you get a chance, talk to Pasharat while you're here today. He can tell you a bit about what we're doing. Next slide. So future programming. There we were from the Pinot training. Okay, you see everything. That's Puputa, Waterporn, Jeff, Khin Brani, Tetapio, Anamwe, and Ainsalai, and the kids. So again, every house you go to, we were able to get them to take the diaper down that was hanging on there. So when the video, Nate2Y came and made the video for us, he's from Mandalay, and when he did the video, we had to get the diaper off the hook because the baby was doing its thing. And we think this project and building this team this way has a lot of traction to go much further. We're an organization that depends on donors. So this came out of the World Monuments Fund Watch. I suggest if any of you are interested in Watch, you look on our webpage, which at the last slide you'll see. And the idea is that we can only do things with donor support. We tend to work with institutional donors, country donors. So Wat Chai Watanaran project was done mainly with US government money and Robert Wilson Challenge Fund money. We now have a group called Friends of Heritage Preservation who liked Thailand, gave us some money to do our last Meru. We'll be exiting out of Wat Chai at the end of this year. And the project is handed over to the Fine Arts Department. Hopefully they will absorb most of our staff into finishing the rest of Wat Chai. We have a couple named Bob and Nellie Gibson who have an organization called Tien Dara Foundation who gave us money for Xuan and Dojong and followed up with money for Burmese Teak Farmhouses project. And we started this project with the Endangered Wooden Architecture program at Oxford Brookes University. Arcadia gave funding to Oxford Brookes. They have their webpage about the Endangered Wooden Architecture program, otherwise nicknamed as AWAP, who gave us $30,000 to initially start the project. Our project exists in a very modest way. We keep a low profile both financially and in our work in the field. But as you see, the reason I'm here is to introduce you to our exhibition that opens on the 8th of July until the 26th. It's open every day of the week except Sunday, 10 to 4, and I think a holiday. We have 4 lectures by Khin. Are you here? Where are you? There you are. There's one of our lecturers. He's going to be the grand finale. We have 3 more people that are doing lectures before that. You can find it on our next slide, please. I'll show you, and actually the last slide will give you the Facebook page for our project. So just to tell you where we work, where we have been working, this is my love. And at some point, when all this calms down, I hope we go back and finish it. Phnom Penh in Angkor, not far from Angkor Wat. We worked on Angkor Wat, specifically worked on the gallery back here, the Churning Milk Gallery was a project of ours. We spent over 2 decades at Phra Khan here in Angkor. An interesting little project, Judson First Baptist Church in Molamyain. If any of you have been to Molamyain, very interesting town. I know Tim's been. He did some great photography for me on that. This was an asbestos removal project. So just a quick note, this church was built by, and I will ruin his name, Jeronian Judson or something like that. Anyone know? Momo Lewin, how do you say it? Jeronan or Jeronian Judson? American guy who, he's a missionary, he's operating in India, and he gets kicked out of India. And he ends up in Molamyain. And he tries to convert Buddhists. He gets nowhere with that. But he makes a bit of headway with the Mon, who are animists, and he converts a lot of Mon to Christianity. At one point, he ends up in the jail up in Ava for quite a while. But he's the one that wrote the very first Burmese English dictionary. This church is on the site of his first church. This is not the first church. This church was built in 1907. And in World War II, it gets bombed by Japanese Zeros. The roof falls off of it. It's completely beautiful, kind of neo-Gothic roof and teak. And because Molamyain was famous for teak, it was reconstructed, and they put asbestos on the roof. So this was a project where the roof was leaking, and we removed the asbestos, I'm giving this so you understand how we kind of work. We conducted a workshop with the Myanmar Engineering Society about the dangers of asbestos. Nobody in Myanmar, what's asbestos? Never kill you, never kill you. No problem, no problem. We conducted that workshop to make a better understanding of what the impact of asbestos is on people. So just to let you know a personal story, my father was in the Navy as an engineer in an aircraft carrier, and 45 years later he developed asbestos cancer. So it's a kind of thing that sneaks up on people. I don't know if they're still making asbestos in Thailand, but they certainly were until recently. And we changed the roof on that. So we tried to roll in education and outreach and awareness about a subject in the replacement of roofs. So we didn't just replace the roof, we tried to broadcast it to a bigger audience. That's Kunot, working at Wat Po. Wat Po is our current project. We have a small project. We're talking with Wat Po about expanding our efforts there into something very interesting, which you might hear about in the future. And next slide. This is one you may know about. This is last year, a National Geographic cover. This is Wat Chai Watanaran. The project will be finishing in December. We will try to do a few events coming up at the end of the year. Maybe we'll let the Siam Society know about it, because you did a great tour of our site. You had over 100 people, I believe, came to see Wat Chai and have some talks. It was a really great time, wasn't it? And I was very impressed by all of you who came. And that's Wat Chai. I'm Jeff. That's Khin Brani. Last slide. Thank you very much. If you're interested, we've set up a Facebook page on Burmese Teak Farmhouses. and you'll see something about our exhibition and the lecture series, all of that, if you go to that page. Thank you very much. Jizitimbade.
ကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်ရှင်
So thank you very much, Jeff Allen and Khin Brani. I think the houses are as much monumental as the religious buildings that they were doing, but this one is sort of even bigger. So thank you very much. Now, question time.
Any questions? Any questions at all? Even if I don't know the answer, I'll say it with confidence, and you'll believe me.
Thank you.
I used to be a park ranger in the United States, and someone once asked me, said, like, you have your story. I say, I have a story. He says, speak with confidence. You got the badge. Everybody believes you. Badge and funny hat. You can say anything that they want to believe you, whether you're right or not. Please.
Yeah, I have several questions. The first one is, did the Khmer Rouge destroy a lot of the wooden structures in Cambodia?
I think it was Holsuckle is his name, I believe. Someone know? Momo Luen. He's the one that published that book with the American Brian. They did that book recently on Cambodian vernacular houses. I don't know if they did that or not, but there is a book that was put out about 2 years ago.
Yes, I've seen it in the bookstore.
Yeah. Holsuckle, I think is his name. He's in Siem Reap. I couldn't answer that for you about Cambodia. By the way, Francois will be doing one of our lectures on that subject. So he's doing a lecture on the comparison between Burmese and Cambodian residential architecture. 14th, I believe, you can check the website, I think it's the 14th of July. So Francois did his PhD on Mandalay Palace and runs something called the Inya Institute. He's here in Bangkok for a conference they're doing at Chulalongkorn this week. So I think he's the one that could probably answer. If you come to lecture, you can get a face-to-face.
And of all the regions in Southeast Asia, is there one area that you can say was the most well preserved in terms of wooden structures?
Myanmar.
Just the whole
It's
country.
my limited understanding of Southeast Asia, Myanmar, definitely. But beware, it's disappearing quickly.
And have you worked in Beirut and Damascus?
No, I worked in Aleppo for years, and I still have my house in Cairo when I'm not here. So I worked in Libya, in Tunisia. I work in Iraq still. Hopefully I get out of there soon. I tell you, it's difficult to work there. Very difficult place to work. And in 2012, I was approached by World Monuments Fund because I was working for a different organization when I worked in the Middle East. I worked for the Aga Khan Trust for Culture. And I was offered an opportunity to work in Iraq, and then somebody came to me and asked me, would you do a project in Myanmar? And the U.S. government had contacted our organization and said, could you come up with an idea for a project? This was 2012. There were inklings that the government was moving towards a more democratic direction. We did something there. We also did something with Yangon Heritage Trust through a conference. And that's how we started working in Myanmar. That was the origins of what we did. I hope that answers a question in a roundabout way. So I moved from the Middle East, and I was offered this opportunity. When it was brought up, actually, to be truthful, I'm sorry for the Thai people, they said to me, would you do something in Myanmar? I said, it'd be a brilliant place for a project. I had been there in the early 1990s. And they said, but you have to also do Wat Chai. I didn't criticize it, but that was the after addition. If I wanted to do Mandalay, because I came up with the project idea of Francois, and I had to also do Wat Chai, which was starting.
And last question, you didn't say where the exhibition is starting July 8th.
How do I say that in Thai? It's at Silapakorn University campus. Department of Architecture, but there's a bigger, longer word in Thai. for it. In the campus near the Grand Palace area, right? I got that right. In the Department of Architecture on the ground floor. Pardon? You know it. You're a student there. Where is it?
Well, it's Silvercorn University, so it's up in the old part of town, which is worth visiting, of course, anyway.
Any other questions? Please, sir.
I was impressed by your crew using the measuring tapes and all. So it makes me wonder, how long does it take to actually complete documenting each individual house? And then so far, how many houses have you documented?
We take 2.5 days to take one house, to take the measurements, everything in one house.
The drawings?
Yeah, we do the drawings for like 1 week or 2 weeks. It depends on the data we have. So we
and
can.
The number of houses, ping 34 with the Pinulwin, right? Yeah, so they're all Shan State except 4 that were done in Shan Kalejon. And just to digress further, Shan Kalejon is an interesting story. There is a developer, Momo Nguyen, the guy who brought in to block off the Irrawaddy, caused flooding, killed some people. And Shan Kalejon, which seasonally floods underneath because the Irrawaddy inundates, and the people of Shan Kalejon, which means something like Little Shan the elephant, right? So this was where the elephant tenders during Amarapura lived in the Irrawaddy, which flooded back and forth. So these were all the mahouts, so to speak, who ran that. And that area now has a levee of sand, which wasn't studied, designed in any way to understand how that would impact the Irrawaddy at the Sagaing turn. It's caused lots of damage. And of course, it's a very rotten little project, it seems. And it's not moved very far, has it? It's been very slow in its movement. But Shan Kalejon is changing. That was the purple and pink house I showed you. And interesting enough about some of the people we talked to there, they know they're going to be kicked out at some point. If there's allowed the case to go, the village will disappear. A big important part of the Marapura dynasty and the history of that area will disappear. So they're playing all sorts of games. So one of the games is one of the ladies said to me, I'm knocking down this 100-year-old teak house. And we tried to understand why. She says, well, I knocked down the 100-year-old house and I build 4 for kids, 1 for her, 5 concrete brick houses with wood framing. So when they come back around asking for settlement, they got to settle 5 of us. Now, she funded that because each one of the families in Shan Kalejon also owned farmland in the area around the village. So they first sold off the farmland, eminent domain was claimed, they were given a price. Then they went back and built those pink and purple houses, figuring that'll get them more money when they eventually get kicked out of the village. People being clever, but out of survival to get as best they can if things change.
So are all these types of houses under some sort of a protection act or some sort, or, I mean, just getting back to your point, what generally happens or has happened in the past when, suppose, the owner of one of these houses sell the parcel of their land which the house is standing on? Do they get dismantled and assembled somewhere else, or are they just some of them just get gutted?
So in general, they're not protected. So the only buildings protected in Myanmar, I guess, under some state would be registered monuments. And they then come under the authority of the Ministry of Religious Affairs and Culture and the Department of Archaeology and National Museums. Now in Yangon, there was an attempt by YHT to try to put in zoning laws and protection of historic buildings. In the typical village, those buildings will go down and that's it. in the case of Shanklin with this lady gave us her whole story, is that they sold all the wood to a salvager who showed up with a truck, loaded all the beams in the truck and took them off. Basically helped them dismantle it so they could take all the wood. And the wood is resold to somebody else. And that's part of the story, is that as teak becomes more difficult to reach, or when there were moratoriums on teak, it just created the black market even richer, with people knocking down houses to grab the teak wood. And Uong So Myen, when we first concocted the story of Burmese Teak Farmhouse in the very beginning, he had just completed a project in Naypyidaw where he bought 13 different farmhouses off farmers. He went around, paid him money. He had money from a teak baron who wanted to set up a resort, so he convinced the teak baron, how about we buy farmhouses, move them to this reservoir you own, and create a 4-star hotel on the site. So in that case, he merged the houses together in some cases, put bathrooms in it, set it all up. I said to him at one point, how did the locals react when they saw what you did with their houses? So he paid these people anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000 per farmhouse, dismantled them because there's not much nails in them, just took apart, reassembled them. He goes, when they saw what we were doing with them, some of them were really angry at us because they wondered why they sold the houses for so cheap. He had approached about 30 or 40 households before he could get 13 to sell. In a way, it's kind of good it didn't work too much better, but you'd see more farmhouses come down and used for 5-star and 4-star resorts. Maybe that's one solution, but it shouldn't be the only solution. Anyone else, please? Brian.
Yes, in Thailand, as I'm sure you know, sometimes, in Thailand, as I'm sure you know, some people like to buy these houses to rebuild elsewhere, to have their own authentic ruin Thai. Is there any trend like that in Burma where, no?
No.
Nobody's doing
I never, you might know better than me, nobody there seems to grab on the idea, let's have a traditional house like here people do.
Not yet.
Just to add on, Jeff, I think in Myanmar, the idea, the sense of nostalgic or conservation or want to live in something old, it hasn't progressed to the point that you see in Thailand. Yeah. So in Myanmar, they are still in the stage of they want to get rid of the old thing. They want to move into the newly built house. They want to show off with the concrete house, painted purple.
Good
like
point.
That's the sign of wealth, especially in a small community like in the village. So I think that's how they're moving towards. It will be another how many years before they come to this, where they start to realize that a lot of things are missing now.
Very good.
And the other thing is that a lot of these dismantled parts would find their way into even the antique market in Chiang Mai.
Yeah.
A lot of them, like the beam, all these, like the reticulated parts like this. We found a lot of them in the antique market in Masot in Chiang Mai. And these, I suppose, they come from the salvage house more or less.
Yes. The patient lady, please.
Thank you for your talk and for your work. 2 questions. Do you have like old photos, let's say from the colonial times, of houses that you can reference and compare? And secondly, did you also document or find out about the skills that are needed to the techniques for this kind of work that you see on this photo? And do people still have these skills?
That's a good story. One of the things we want to do, and I think, Ping, you were with Waterpond and you met the guy who still builds these houses, right? So there's a great chance to do oral story recording about these people who have the skill sets. Now, I flipped this picture to show you this. Now, most of that, what you see on there is not old. Shuizhong was under constant repair. So it's a chance to reinvigorate the crafts. When we did that building, we found that much of this woodwork was missing and incorrectly installed. Some of it had been put upside down, wrong way, and that kind of thing. And we brought back the wood carvers of Marapura, and got them to recarve things. Again, part of preservation, that skills section I talked about, revigorating crafts and bringing back reason to exist. The Nara Charter supports that of UNESCO. The idea that you can revive, especially with wooden architecture, it's a very important point. Its way of decay in tropical environments is inevitable. You can slow it down, but if you slow that down, you're still not going to stop it. And so you need to invest in people. And if you go on, if you typed in World Monuments Fund, Shui and Dao, you'll see a short video where Yu Kan Zhou and Francois and I talk about the idea of bringing back the craft. And the interesting thing in that case was that all of the wood carvers we were working with have only been carving Chinese furniture for export. So they had lost the touch of doing things in a konbong stylistic way. And we had several times where we'd give them a piece of woodland and I'd say, throw it away. And they were like, no. I said, it's not konbong. There should be a variation of what a konbong can be within a stylistic sense, but they were trying to carve like Chinese furniture. So there's a concern there. It would be great to say that in a fantasy world, that Chai Tung area could be a great holiday place for Thai to come, for instance, to experience in villages, to rent Airbnbs with restored houses that would bring incomes to local families and communities, and capturing some of the value of those historic architecture. But Myanmar's not Thailand. In Thailand, maybe not somewhere else. I think we're still a long ways away from that. But that would be a great dream where some of these houses have a reuse in the future, but that produces financial opportunities for local people.
DC is running a program that has been doing over 20 years in Yangon, and they've been training people with architecture, traditional forms of architecture, and they're still doing it today. So it's a great program. When I was there between 2013 and 2017, they had 20 people involved with those kind of programs, and they're still going on strong. So they do have those kind of programs. Different agencies, different groups doing different things. But we need to coordinate it. That's the problem, is that everyone's doing all these little things everywhere, and no one knows the whole picture.
Well, you get organizations, mine as well. Turquoise Mountain's another classic example. They focus on what they're doing and pleasing their donors, and there's not always a lot of kind of networking or communications in between each other.
You commented that it's not only teak that you're talking about when you talk about these wooden farmhouses. There are hundreds of species of trees in Southeast Asia, more of thousands. So what about other types of trees and how other types of wood and how well they survive or don't survive? This is a question for you, or perhaps
my
other people here.
My limited knowledge to answer some of that, because I'm not a wood specialist, but I can refer to Shui Zhang. So Shui Zhang was teak, and its origins are 100% teak. It's the royal wood. In subsequent repairs, a lot of the decks and materials were substituted with pinkadu, which is a denser, heavier wood, not as easy to carve, but denser and heavier. And there was an attempt to use that wood because it was cheap solution. Our goal was to remove all the pinkadu out of that building. And so we were dismantling the decks that were put in the 1990s, replacing them in the historic orientation they previously were, and doing it in teak. Cost us a lot of money. There's a real interesting point there, because certain woods have certain qualities. My comparison, pinkadu, chunky, heavy, not easy to carve, not easy to cut. And when I talked to our carpenters, they said teak is smooth. Tim could tell you a lot about teak, by the way, because he has his book, and how it is to work with it for a carpenter. It's a dream wood, they say. Tim, anything to say on that?
Thanks, Jeff. Well, I think teak is a unique species, and actually I got to learn from some people that study wood in Kerala in southern India. And the thing is, it's got all moderate properties, so there's a lot of stuff to do with the mechanics of teak in terms of how it can, sort of in an engineering sense, transfer stress through it in a directional sense, and also absorption of moisture is a really important thing in this climate, but more than that, also it's got basically juice in it that repels bugs. So it's got an oil. So that all those things don't exist in any other species.
True.
Basically.
And it's the smell. People love the smell.
Yeah.
So when you work with teak, it's got this unique.
Plus, Myanmar's had heaps of it, as well as Thailand.
We had issues with teak when moisture was in contact with it and fungus developed and killed the chemical juices, so you speak, and the termites would follow that through the teak and eat it up like crazy because the protection was gone. So dry out a building if you can.
Sorry, but teak is believed to be water resistant. That's why when colonial time, the British loved the teak for the ship buildings, and teak become quite a commercial export products, and then well protected by, it becomes like the government properties. Any teak plant you cannot cut, or no one can touch. It becomes a state properties. So that law has been quite a long time, and I'm not sure, but a few years back it's somehow relieved, and then the village or the private people can plant the teak woods in their private land. Previously, it's prohibited. So I think the context is the teak is quite the big produce of Myanmar, especially the middle range, middle Yoma. So the Myanmar that is running in the middle of the country from north to southern part, and that thick wood, the forest, produce a lot of teak woods. So that is quite lovable products, as you said, carpenters love because it's easy to handle and the best for the furniture and the house with the smell. But there's many other varieties of hardwood in Myanmar. Like when you said piengado is harder, so it is used mainly for the framing, columns or beam, or that is very, very good. But the individual carpenters not easy to handle. And the other things like nara, the fragrance smelly, our national flowers, the badal is also the red, kind of redwood. Very, very, I think it's called nara, or it's also in Hawaii, also, the different species in Thailand a lot. But the different kinds of nara, it's for the flowers and for the wood for house building or furniture making. That's also very good. And mostly the cheapest and many that produce is in or Kenyan. That is hardwood, and it's common for the building, making the wall or the column. But there's a risk of termites, so you need to protect with the petroleum cover or things. Yes.
Can I just say, because because the conversation seems to be heading there, and listening to what everyone's chipping in. The interesting thing is, quickly, from talking about the context of people trying to live in buildings, or let alone buildings as monuments, that it's actually quite quickly headed to questions of ecology, literally, because you can put in a teak plantation And in a lot of countries, people have done that, many around the world. But if you cut it, say, after 20 or 25 years, which most places aren't politically stable enough to be able to even handle that kind of cycle, teak doesn't have the values that make it teak. It only starts producing after it's about 25 years old. The growth slows down, but it creates these chemicals that keep the termites away and mean that there are teak structures that are many, many hundreds of years old still. But so the thing is, not only in a business sense, being able to keep plantations going, which are never as good as nature anyway, but the really, really rich people in the world who want super yachts and for money isn't an issue will get teak somehow. They'll pay top dollar for it, but it's got to be old growth Myanmar forest. So there's a premium on the environment. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, I'm sorry, and I'd love to offer some solutions, but I know those things are...
Sorry, but what I know is teak cannot plant quite easily. And then when during the General Ne Win time, because he has to rely on this export as the country income. So he grow designated teak plantations all along the road. But it's totally different from what British do. Very systematically growing the teak, meaning that at some point you have to clear the smaller one so that you have to make the stronger one in the middle. So,
problems of disease and competition, like nothing can compete with natural grown product. And I think also getting back to where Jeff and
Khin, Brani.
And the question our friend asked, it was about skills. So actually it's about sustainability, and not just in terms of an environment or an ecology, which is a big challenge in itself, but in the same way that heritage is not about a fixed building, it's about the ability to keep reproducing that style of work. Or, that's, I think the NARA document on heritage in the UN addresses that basically in Asian cultures they said, okay, all these stuffy Westerners have been saying, oh, that great monument or this building or that church or whatever, due to architectural merit or whatever, should be kept. And eventually UNESCO got around to understanding that heritage was actually in the retention of skills, and that you could have a Buddhist Shinto shrine in Japan that you could actually knock down and rebuild every 50 years. And that was a valid form of heritage because people actually still had the skills. So yeah, that's my rave. Is it difficult to get any programs going with people in Myanmar at the moment? Is it possible?
Is it difficult to work in Myanmar? No. Set programs. It would be difficult to work with the government. There are restrictions on them, for instance, to work with us. We're going to do some things on an earthquake training workshop program with the Myanmar Engineering Society. By pairing with them a semi-government organization, we might be able to do something. But the kind of things we want to do is we rely on the municipality as part of that workshop. So there are issues you have to do. To work on a project like Shuizhong, almost impossible today. It's very difficult for the DOA to work with foreign organizations at the moment. And as it explained to me, the only people who could speak to me officially when I've met with DOA people in Mandalay, you have to go to Naypyidaw. So they're informal meetings when we have them.
But I was curious, Jeff, as well, and sorry I'm talking too much, but actually your the last slide said that donations to the World Monuments Fund are tax exempt under US law, which made me think about the current situation in the States. And you'd mentioned being independent of government, but how's things with the State Department, and do they, is the US, do you think, as a whole, happy to promote your best efforts?
I don't know if you want to hear a quick story. We, as I said, we work with private donors, institutional donors, corporations, to limited. Corporations haven't been big donors. Those things, the organizations I showed you are institutional donors, foundations, etc. And we work with governments. So we work with EU, Chinese government, Indian government. We work with U.S. State Department. Prior to the current administration, we had 12 AFCP grants. We're the largest recipient of Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation grants. And we had 12. Then we lost 7. We bounced back and picked up one recently that we closed and suddenly got a phone call and said the grant's active. So for us, that was an impact of over $980,000 that was still owed us on grants that were outstanding, still working on it. We are not working with the typical USAID grants. We work with special grants through embassies. Luckily, the Wat Chai funding we had closed already, and we were working with a different funder at the moment, which does change the dynamic. So our relationship with the Fine Arts Department of Thailand no longer has a diplomatic aspect in it, and actually makes it easier. I would say, it'd be very difficult for anyone to walk in and just front off cold call and work with the Fine Arts Department. It's a very bureaucratic agency, but we had an established track record with them. And when we said we had donor support to go one more Meru, they knew us. And there was very little problem with it. But that also took out the diplomatic equation. We're finding, like I said, the project in Cairo that I work on had lost a $500,000 grant that was in its last stage, and suddenly it popped back up. Couldn't tell you why. It has to do with politics. It has to do with Gaza and the U.S. government's treatment of, which is probably the biggest amount of money the U.S. spends on social development, has been Egypt, $400 or $500 million a year. And that all programs were cut in one swoop, everything. Some have trickled back, a few, like ours. I couldn't tell you why we got the grant back. We had closed it, shut it all down, boom, popped up like a zombie out of the grave. We'll see. The program, the AFCP, the budget's dramatically cut for it. What they still do, we'll see. We're applying again this year. Please, Ju.
Thank you, Kun Jeff, for your presentation. Very impressive. I would like to ask, you mentioned about working also on the anthropology work. And I would like to know, do you also have anthropologists in the team, or that work done by the architect who trained to like observe the social practices or talking to the people? Is that the parallel work with the documentation?
I'll make this quick answer.
Yes. Last question.
Yeah. This is an aspect we're looking for. We're looking for an anthropologist who can do cultural mapping. So my colleague Waterporn worked in Narathiwat recently with a group of Thai people who were doing cultural mapping for projects down there towards these areas where there's insecurity and instability, and trying to develop tourism markets in those areas. And she was trying to learn that kind of issues. But we really need eventually an anthropologist who's interested. Ideally, they speak Burmese and able to go in and talk with people and have conversations. Our conversations are about, while we're surveying, we're asking them about their families, about their jobs, about their houses, that kind of stuff. We've not got into where we want to do is to take those drawings back to some of those households and get in with the people about what we see and what we learn. So if you know someone who's interested, I'm very interested. Thank you for all these really good questions and dialogue. Much appreciated, right?
Thank you very much.
Jezatimbade. Why to all of you.
Thanks very much, Kun Jeff and Khin Brani. Please accept some gift, our gift.